I can make it there. I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
Good morning. Good morning. It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I am your host, Richie, and on today's show, we're going to be hitting on the assault that went down in something that initially looked like a one-way victim situation with a famous person. We're talking about Mark Sanchez, who I imagine will be getting fired from his job with Fox Sports. We're going to hit on that. Speaking of assaults, New York Yankees took it on the chin yesterday in Toronto for a second consecutive game as the Toronto Blue Jays are one win away from the American League Championship Series. True heartbreaker for the New York Yankees as, a great season is one loss away from coming to an end. If there's any silver lining, the Yankees have played better in the Bronx against these Blue Jays. These Blue Jays look like a team that is possessed. We're going to hit on that as well. And a full rundown of the action in Sunday's NFL slate. And I'm going to give you my Monday night football prediction. We're going to start this up north of the border. New York Yankees. A game going into that I personally felt the Yankees had the natural advantage. You have a Cy Young candidate in Max Fried, 19-game winner, going against a young man who only has 4 major league starts, Trey Savage, who similarly to Cam Schlittler pitched a phenomenal game for a postseason start. And it's been a trend with these young rookies this year. I mean, you're talking about a kid who less than 2 months ago was in single A. Now he's pitching in the playoffs trying to win a pennant against the division rival and the biggest winners in baseball history. So, you can't even mention this game without mentioning how phenomenal this young man was yesterday. And, only one walk, 11 Ks through 5. Really had the Yankee batters just looking silly. I mean, they could not avoid the splitter. They were just chasing out of the zone. He had their biological clock all messed up. And as Max Fried goes, the one concern when we brought in Max Fried to the Yankees was his postseason numbers. He's been a great regular season pitcher going back to his time in Atlanta. He pitched well in the Boston series, but he got lit up, and that career ERA in the postseason is not indicative of his numbers over the course of his regular season career. Derek Jeter, Alex Rodriguez, post-game, we're talking about if there's any positives the Yankees could take going back to the Bronx. Jeter made mention of being down in 2-0 holes previously in his career, but this is a little different. This is a little different, I also think, because of the caliber of opponent that they're playing. But Jeter said if Savage stays in the game, maybe the Yankees don't have any confidence, as the Yankees were able to put up 7 runs in 2 frames to kind of make the game somewhat respectable. And, baseball is a very finicky game where if you start gaining confidence, things could change quick. Yankees have been very good in the Bronx all year long, but their season will lie on the shoulders of Carlos Rodon. And if they are fortunate enough to force a game 4, it will be the rookie Cam Schlittler, who was sensational against the Boston Red Sox. But I've been watching Yankee baseball for a long time. And all I'm going to say is I would be mind blown, truly, truly mind blown, if the Yankees are able to come back in this series. I think Toronto has proven that they are the better team. And I think the end is near for the Yankees, as much as it pains me to say this. So the Yankees will be facing elimination. 2-0 thus far in the postseason in that situation. But what makes this even tougher is that the Blue Jays have been so good at home. And if the Yankees are able to get back in this series and force a game 5, a potential game 5 would be all hands on deck in terms of the pitching. And more than likely, I would imagine Luis Gil gets the ball there. And that is less than desirable, less than ideal for the New York Yankees. But Yankees dug themselves a hole, and we're going to find out what kind of character they have if they can pull themselves out of it. If I'm looking for one positive, however this plays out, I think Captain Aaron Judge has done a good job of quieting some of his naysayers as he is hitting over 400 in these playoffs. So I try to look for silver linings of narratives that have been drawn about the captain. I think the captain is hitting very well. But unfortunately, between Luke Weaver's struggles in these playoffs, and now you factor in that your co-ace, Max Fried, just got lit up, it just doesn't look good. And it's a credit, truly a credit, to the Toronto Blue Jays. This is a team that's playing without Bo Bichette, their star shortstop, and Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s first time in the postseason. He has turned it up to a huge notch. You know, just playing at an MVP level right now. So, you know, I've seen the Yankees fight their way out of tough situations all season, and even going back to last year. But this is going to take a complete all hands on deck team effort if the Yankees are to somehow find a way back into this series. I do not like their chances. Keeping it in the New York sports region, New York football Giants, quintessential example of shooting yourself in the foot yesterday, as Jackson Dart looked very sharp out the gates, hooking up with his best friend on the team, tight end Theo Johnson, for 2 early touchdowns. At one point, the Giants had an 11-point lead, but 5 consecutive possessions with 5 turnovers really turned this game around. Prior to the half, Jackson Dart led his team down the field. Darius Slayton, trying to make an extra move for a little bit more yardage, loses the football. Jackson Dart, next possession, coughs it up without anyone touching him, holding the ball kind of carelessly. Later in the game, Dart just trying to make something happen. Couple of interceptions. I think you can make a case that neither was truly his fault. And of course, rookie Cam Scatabo inside the red zone fumbling one. It was just a folly show for the New York football Giants, letting a team that I personally don't think is better than them off the hook, as the Saints went on to win 26-14. And when you have so many rookies, in this case, quarterback, running back, 2 guys that I think the world of in Cam Scatabo and Jackson Dart, you're going to deal with these growing pains. But it's another season, it's another October, and the Giants already have 4 losses. So the good feelings of beating a very good Charger team immediately evaporate. And after seeing the Chargers get beat by the Washington Commanders yesterday, blowing their own double-digit lead, makes one wonder if the Chargers are as good as we originally thought, as they started off 3-0 and have now suffered two consecutive losses, each to an NFC East team. New York Jets had no answers yesterday for Dak Prescott. Dallas Cowboys cruised to a huge win yesterday over the Jets in MetLife Stadium. And right now, the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, Dak Prescott, another guy that you could talk about playing at an MVP level. Getting back to the Giants for a second, I got to say, if you're watching the Fox telecast and you know how they give you your in-game updates about other action around the league, it had to be tough yesterday for Giant fans. I know for me, I had a couple of eye rolls as they consistently showed former Giants doing their thing elsewhere. I'm, of course, talking about mainly Saquon Barkley and Evan Ingram in that Broncos Eagles game. Now, I know many of you may already know this, but in case you don't, I'll speak on a little tradition that goes down in Miami Dolphin land. As I'm sure many of you know, the Miami Dolphins 1972 team is the only undefeated team in the history of the NFL. Of course, the Patriots outdid their regular season numbers, as back then it was a shorter season, but didn't win the big one. The Giants beat them. Every year, the remaining members of the 72 Dolphins team who are still here with us pop champagne and celebrate no more teams being undefeated, which alleviates the pressure of them losing their perfect season or being joined by someone else. As yesterday, the last two hopes to achieve that dream were killed as the Philadelphia Eagles lost a tough one to the Denver Broncos at home, and the Buffalo Bills also lost at home in prime time to the New England Patriots. Stephon Diggs really willing his team to victory yesterday against his former team. And I remember earlier in the year, guy who has some of the best posts on social media and really gets detailed when talking about the New York Giants, talking about Doug Rush, made a mention that perhaps Stephon Diggs, coming off that season-ending injury last year in Houston, could have been a phenomenal compliment to Malik Neighbors. The Giants ultimately chose not to move forward with him. Now you have Neighbors out of the picture for the year with the knee injury. And I'm sorry, Darius Slayton, Giants gave him some good money to bring him back, but he truly is not it. I am I'm optimistic with the growth of Jackson Dart as I watched this game yesterday, and I'm not putting this all on him. You know, rookies are going to make mistakes. Cam Scatterbo's been awesome. I think one of the telltales about why I like both these young men is that each of them, each of these young men took a lot of accountability. And I think when you take that kind of accountability as a young player, or young players in this case, I feel that you show a great deal of maturity because losing is the toughest thing for any jock, especially when you're not used to losing and you immediately get celebrated on such a big stage, that, of course, being the New York media market. So last night, seeing the accountability coming from Cam Scatterbo and Jackson Dart, I think Giant fans at minimum have to feel good that they have some strong leaders that do not accept that performance. Where in the past, I think you've seen guys that have shied away from taking full blame. And one thing that I enjoy about Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo in the early going is that they do not want to accept mediocrity and that they hold people accountable. And I think when you hold people accountable in team sports, it's huge. It's truly huge. Moving it along, other happenings in the NFL. Keyshawn Judkins, another big game, albeit in a defeat for the Cleveland Browns. They were playing in London yesterday against the Minnesota Vikings. Um, Tough loss for the Browns, but my guy Mike Zappi said it best. When you see Judkins doing what he does for this Cleveland team, it kind of makes you forget about Nick Chubb. And that's a strong thing when you consider what Nick Chubb meant to that organization for so many years. But the Minnesota Vikings improved to 3-2, hanging in the NFC North picture. Detroit Lions let the Cincinnati Bengals get some respectability points. But quite frankly, they ran all over them. They did what they wanted on offense. And I do tend to wonder why the Cincinnati Bengals have not contacted the New York Giants about potentially obtaining Russell Wilson. Because I think if you get a player like a Wilson, he at least gives you a chance to hold the fort down while Joe Burrow continues to heal. I, for one, would make that move. I'm not quite sure why the Bengals have had this kind of patience. Perhaps it's because the Baltimore Ravens have their own issues. Without Lamar Jackson, Cooper Rush starting, we were way wrong about this game. The Baltimore Ravens just got out physicaled and pushed around by a Houston Texans team that really needed to win a ball game here. As the Houston Texans trying to get another division title, get back into the picture. Of course, tonight we have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs. My prediction for tonight's action, I think it's going to be a close one, but I like the combo of Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo finding a way to make Trevor Lawrence's day not the best night, I should say. And I think the Chiefs are starting to get their footing after a very slow start, a worrisome start, in that division. Denver gets a big win against the world champion Eagles. I think the pressure's on the Chiefs to keep pace and get a W. And with seeing the recent struggles of the Chargers, that I think goes hand in hand with having those issues on the O-line due to injury, as Rashawn Slater is done. And opposite of him, another tackle injury to Joe Alt. So I believe that this is an opportunity for the Chiefs, seeing some blood in the water, some vulnerability, where they can get themselves back to being that team that was always a shoo-in to make title weekend and usually play in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs are trying to accomplish something this year that hasn't been done since the Buffalo Bills of the 90s, and that would be making 4 consecutive Super Bowls. Of course, the Bills didn't win in any of those. Back to that Bills game, are they fraudulent? I'm not going to go that far. I think when you play a division rival and a team that's learning how to win under a very good coach in Mike Vrabel, these things happen. But New England, even on some of their down years, has always been good to give Buffalo a great test at least once this season. But some of the Bills' imperfections were on full display yesterday, and I don't believe that their defense is nearly as good as advertised. As Stephon Diggs really had his way running his routes, getting open. And you're seeing Drake May grow in front of all of you. Drake May is proving to be a great pick for the New England Patriots in a post-Bill Belichick world, a post-Tom Brady world. And I think these New England Patriots are really trending upward and heading in the right direction. Miami Dolphins, a tale of just weirdness. Down 17, come all the way back to take the lead, but Carolina ultimately walks it off to a big win. Rico Dowdle, the local Carolina product, playing in front of his home crowd, getting the rare opportunity to start as Chuba Hubbard is currently injured. And the Panthers get a big win. They are another team learning how to win. Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Pacific Northwest in front of the 12th man. Probably the most exciting game yesterday if you love offense, as both Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield, who were draft mates, back and forth affair. But ultimately, Tampa was able to outscore Seattle. Tampa improves to 4-1 on the young season as they are in full control of the NFC South. The NFC South. And that leads me into my next point. I watched an interesting video the other day about Daniel Jones and how it incorporated with examples of these two men. Both Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold were very high picks. Both kind of got ran out of town on their original teams. These two even were teammates for a brief while in Carolina. But Baker Mayfield, after kicking around for a while, ultimately becomes Tom Brady's replacement in Tampa, and it has been a career resurrection. Sam Darnold, I would say, was even the longer road because prior to his time last year in Minnesota, he never really had any track record of any true success. But I do think the time in San Francisco, being able to reset and learn, truly helped him. Now, that brings me to Daniel Jones. We all know the wonderful job that Shane Steichen is doing with Jones. Indianapolis Colts put up a 40 burger on the Las Vegas Raiders last night, and it's a feel good win and a feel good early season for Daniel Jones, who, as many of you know, was Eli Manning's replacement in New York, but there was a lot of issues internally with the Giants, constantly changing coordinators, constantly changing head coaches. Since arriving in Indy, his turnovers have been very low. His deep ball is coming back into play. He has a quality offensive line. Oddly enough, a player I thought the Giants should have drafted in Quentin Nelson anchoring that line. And he has a resurgent Jonathan Taylor who's healthy and had a bust out beautiful game yesterday. I think what I'm getting at is sometimes for quarterbacks that are picked high, but then get knocked down a few pegs, I think sitting on the bench and learning in a healthy system can revitalize some of these quarterbacks. It happened last year in Minnesota, oddly enough, watching Sam Darnold, but the Kevin O'Connell magic, a real thing. And I watched this YouTube video yesterday that really spoke about how Daniel Jones just sheltered too much of the blame in a very dysfunctional New York Giants team. And, when you consider the way he was treated on the way out, and I do believe that Jackson Dart might be good enough to save Brian Dable, so to speak, it speaks volumes. Truly, truly speaks volumes on a different narrative now. If coaching was always the problem, and maybe it wasn't Jones. I mean, as many of you know, the Giants have struggled so many years getting together their offensive line. So there's a lot to be said about all of it. But as a Giant fan, I'm honestly happy for Daniel Jones because whether or not he was the guy, so to speak, I think that he always put the best foot forward. And I think that, as John Mara said, the team did not do any favors for that young man. And Daniel Jones got his ass kicked in New York, both in the media and physically. But, seeing him get a new fresh air, a new start in Indianapolis has been encouraging because while I have no horse in the race, so to speak, with Indy doing better, I do keep track of former players that I did care about. And while Jones may never be Eli Manning, I don't even think it was a fair comparison to even put him on that pedestal. Those are two very big shoes to fill. And I think, unfortunately, as everything went sideways for the Giants, he was always the first guy to catch all the blame. And then when you see Saquon Barkley leave because of a robust quarterback market and a situation where the Giants kind of had to sign Jones after winning that playoff game, um, he was definitely a big public enemy of many Giant fans in that fan base. But, seeing him away from that team, seeing him with a coach that plays to his strengths, and most importantly, seeing him win, I think it makes people question just who was truly at fault when he was in a Giants uniform. Because the New York Giants have not made much traction since he left. I do like Jackson Dart. I do think we found the right quarterback, but there are still a lot of parts around that make you wonder just if this Giants organization is as functional and if Brian Dable truly deserves to still have this head coaching job. Time will reveal that. Um, Former New York Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez, analyst for Fox Sports. Initially, a lot of reports came out about Sanchez being stabbed, and it looked in the media initially as a one-way victim kind of situation where he was senselessly stabbed. As facts came out from the police department where this went down, he was supposed to cover the Indy game, to my knowledge. It comes to be that Sanchez assaulted an Uber Eats driver and for not moving a vehicle, and Sanchez did not cooperate with the police. And as a self-defense tactic, after apparently trying to use pepper spray on Sanchez, the Uber Eats driver stabbed him. So Sanchez is facing criminal charges, I think, on 3 different counts. So I imagine his commentating career is probably over because I don't see anyone wanting to touch that after this public intoxication turning into an assault and the ugly scene. And it kind of makes you remember that sometimes people get lured into thinking people are a certain way because of their position. You see them on TV every week. I mean, look no further than O.J. Simpson, who was a great pitch man in his day. And, I think a lot of people just loved O.J. And then you find out the other stuff. And I think what I'm trying to say is, while I have such a high admiration for professional athletes and I do this great sports podcast that I'm humbled and grateful to do, I think it's important to remember that they are people just like the rest of us. And they make mistakes, and some of them just aren't good people, just like you see many less famous situations in the world. But having said that, got to be disappointed in Mark Sanchez to throw away a beautiful second career and act like that. It really makes you wonder if there's an entitlement issue. I mean, you're over here messing with a working man. It's ridiculous on so many levels. But these are things that unfortunately we see quite too often with former athletes. Through 5 weeks, who do I have as the best team right now in the NFL? That is a weird question because my panel, Idris Salam, as well as Mike Zappi, myself included, were correct that the Denver Broncos were going to get this big road dub in Philadelphia. There have been certain trends with this Eagles team that remind me a little too much of their 2023 team that was in between their two Super Bowl teams. And, Zappi made some good points about Steichen no longer being there, about Kellen Moore no longer being there, and that this is basically a Nick Sirianni offense. And revisiting that 23 season, the Eagles won a lot of close games, but offensively and just philosophy-wise gradually kind of fell apart. So my panel, myself included, hit on that in a big way. Shouts out to Mike Zappi. He's the only one who called the Saints for the upset. Got to give him that one. None of us had the Patriots winning, but most of America didn't either. And through the early going, if I have to pick a team in the NFC that I think is the quote unquote best right now, I don't have one. It is that wide open. Dallas Cowboys are playing good football. You revisit week 1 and what went down there, and now they're getting some confidence back in that secondary. You look at Javonte Williams and his reassertion into the league. He's healthy now. Dak Prescott playing at an MVP level, and this is going on without CeeDee Lamb. You know, what are the Green Bay Packers about? After the very good start against two good teams, they have cooled off considerably, losing and getting a tie in their last 2 games, giving up 40 to those Dallas Cowboys. Little too early to tell. I'll give the Eagles the respect given the fact that they have been there so consistently over the last few years. We see a 49er team that keeps finding a way to win these very close games as well. I would have to say the shock of yesterday has to be the Arizona Cardinals blowing that huge lead to the Tennessee Titans. Cam Ward getting his first win. That nobody, and I mean nobody, saw that coming. And, a Rams team who I picked to make the NFC title game this year, giving away each of their last 2 games. So right now in the NFC, in my opinion, it's very wide open. No clear concise best team in that conference. Now, as the AFC goes, similar to what I just said, I like what I'm seeing from the Denver Broncos, but a Chiefs win tonight puts them on a 3-game winning streak after starting off 0-2. And as much as things change in this league, as much as they stay the same, Baltimore Ravens were a huge favorite coming in. We see all their problems. They're 1-4 and quickly nosediving. Buffalo Bills, questionable competition to come out the gates. They get beat by their division rival. But I will say two teams that are trending upward right now. The New England Patriots, well deserved, as well as the Denver Broncos getting that road dub against the world champions. Denver was my team, one of my teams, to make the AFC Championship game. And I like what Sean Payton is doing out there, gradually bringing RJ Harvey up to speed. He is not known for giving a lot of action to rookie running backs. J.K. Dobbins, a well-tested veteran in this league, leading that backfield. But, man, my fantasy team yesterday, I benched David Montgomery, I benched Devontae Smith, and I lose. I have other fantasy victories, but my main league that matters the most to me, Pops Cheddar and the Sun, playing the commish John Olsen. And in the words of the great Dennis Green, I let him off the hook. But until next time, I am Richie. Announcements to come for our next show. We are considering breaking up our NFL action, our preview, into 2 separate videos. We will definitely keep you posted on that. Have a great day, everyone.